Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Arsenal proved to be kings of North London, at least for a day, as they crushed Spurs at the Emirates. How did they do it? Where did Spurs go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Arsenal beat Spurs. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how Arsenal got off to a good start, and how Spurs were able to adjust. And then we'll get to the second half to see what other tactical changes both sides made before Arsenal were able to kill off the game. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We have Spurs in a 4-4-2 diamond. No real changes as to last week, where we saw Dele Alli at the tip of the diamond with Son and Kane up front, Eriksen and Sissoko as the shuttlers, and Eric Dyer at the base. Then we get to Arsenal 3-4-3. They went with Mkhitaryan, Iwobi, and Aubameyang up front. Out in the wider areas, Kolasinac and Bellerin. And in midfield, they went with Xhaka and Tyrrell. So first, let's see how Arsenal were able to get ahead and start the game well for the first time practically since Emery took over, and how Spurs were able to adjust. 3-4-1-2 against 4-4-2 diamond. What we have here is Spurs sticking with the same system that helped them beat Chelsea last week. Why that was so pivotal is the fact that Ali played a key role in sitting on Jorginho and stifling him, while Eriksen and Sissoko were able to man mark Kovacic and Conte at the game with Dyer as an extra man in midfield. Perhaps they thought that that system worked last week, so why not try it again here? Or perhaps it was the fact that they thought Arsenal would try to combat them in midfield. However, it didn't work out that way, because what happens here is they have Kolasinac and Bellerin pushing forward without any direct threat, based on the fact that Iwobi often took up narrow positions and pulled Aurier out of position. And then you have Mkhitaryan as well, who's going to obviously run at Ben Davies. That was how they were able to really get about their business. You had Xhaka and you had Tyrrell switching the play quickly, trying to get them forward, and they played key roles, more so Kolasinac in that first half. So that was a big problem. At the back, you have the 3v2. Ali never really pushed forward. At times, it looked like Ali and Son were sitting on Xhaka and Tyrrell to ensure that they couldn't get on the ball. But at times, you would see Son push out, and then on the odd occasion, see Ali push out. At the end of the day, this wasn't really about how Spurs were getting at Arsenal, because they weren't really stopping them from playing out the back. This was more about Arsenal ensuring that Spurs couldn't play out the back, and Spurs were forced into several issues in that first half, and they weren't able to really create chances from deeper positions. Why is that? Well, they have the center backs pushing out. They would have Dyer sometimes dropping in. But what happens there is that you have the front three pushing into those defenders, and with Dyer splitting in. And then what happens is that even if the wider players push out in Davies and Aurier, the wing backs can step out to them. And then when you look at it, if the midfielders try to push in Eriksen and Sissoko, you have Tyrrell and Xhaka ready to push forward. They're being pressed throughout the pitch. This was the key talking point throughout that first half, is the fact that Arsenal were forcing them into issues. Spurs looked uncomfortable. They started slow. Arsenal, on the other hand, started quickly. And this was about how Arsenal were getting into key positions. So now let's get into some chances and see how Arsenal were able to fluster Spurs, and why they should have been up possibly more goals heading into the midway point of the first half. Arsenal's positive start to the first half did see them lead within the opening 15 minutes. In that time, we did see their pressing go into effect, and it did force Spurs into some mistakes. When we look at some of the opportunities prior to the goal, it's Davies being pressed by Mkhitaryan, and then he gives the ball away to Bellerin, which sees him play it into the space behind Davies for Mkhitaryan. He now locates Aubameyang making a run towards Foyth. The cross goes in. He towers over Foyth, and he nods his effort over the net. That's one good opportunity for them. Another one sees Aurier track Iwobi into that left channel at half. What happens there is that he easily turns him, and because Aurier is beat, now you have space down that left-hand side. What does he do? He plays the overlapping Kolasinac, but when Kolasinac plays his cross into the box, what happens is that Davies is able to intervene and clear his lines. Another opportunity stems from the press. We see Sissoko play a poor pass into Eriksen, and it's Tyrrell who steps in. Mkhitaryan picks up the ball, slides it wide to Iwobi. You expect Iwobi to do better here. 1v1 with Foyth in left half space. However, he's unable to get a yard on him, and he fires his shot off the defender. The build up to the goal, it was a penalty that was caused by Vertonghen's handball, but how did they get there? The ball switched out to Kolasinac. Sissoko gets out to that space late. What happens here is that he plays a poor ball into Aurier, but Aurier doesn't control it well. Foyth switches off. He doesn't move. Aubameyang makes that run into that space. Aurier now tracks back and fouls him, and then that leads to the free kick that earns them the penalty that Aubameyang converts. So when we look into the chances after the goal, we have to think about Vertonghen stepping forward as Spurs were a bit higher. He tries to play a pass into Harry Kane dropping off. What happens is that he misses that pass. Xhaka intercepts, and he plays it to Aubameyang, who drives forward and ends up sliding the ball out to Iwobi. What happens here now is that Iwobi drives at Foyth and Aurier but runs into danger. What happens here now, he plays the overlapping run into Kolasinac. He plays that ball into that overlapping run. The ball into the box evades everyone, and it's just behind Aubameyang, who's unable to control his chances. When you place Aubameyang in that position, he has to score, and the cross needs to be good. Arsenal, another wasted opportunity. From a free kick, we end up seeing Kolasinac again in a more advanced zone. And what happens there is that Xhaka locates it. He instantly pings the ball out to Kolasinac. Kolasinac now not picked up in that advanced zone towards the edge of the left side of the box. And he ends up pulling the ball back into Iwobi, who fires his shot at Lloris. Should score, doesn't score. More issues for Arsenal. The final chance that we end up seeing here is that Foyth gets into a sliding tackle on Mkhitaryan, and that ball ends up falling to Xhaka. What happens there is now the ball is now switched out to Kolasinac, or it's now switched out to Iwobi, who is close by Aurier, and he plays the ball in behind him for your man in Kolasinac. Dyer steps across. What we need to locate now is the fact that Aubameyang makes a run into the box, and it drags out Vertonghen and it drags out Davies. Now what Kolasinac does locate is Bellerin breaking towards the box, and he plays that cross in. Davies catches it late, but he's able to make a vital intervention to ensure that Bellerin is unable to build on Arsenal's lead. When you break that down, the opening 20 minutes saw Spurs make several mistakes. Arsenal were pressing well, forcing them into those errors, but although they were getting into good positions with Kolasinac, with Aubameyang, they were unable to build on a lead that they really deserved, given the fact that they were playing so well. So now let's get to after the 20-minute mark, and there was one chance just before that where Spurs were finally finding outlets to get into the game, and that stemmed through Heung-min Son, who was their key player in the first half. Now when we look at Spurs, they created a few chances. That stemmed from Son, who was able to use his pace and his dribbling ability to put them into good positions. And like he was integral to their victory against Chelsea in the previous week, here he also played a key role. We look at one of the few chances. Foyth recovers a poor pass, and then he goes into a 50-50 challenge with Iwobi, and he wins it. What we see here is that it falls to Ali, who ends up flicking the ball over Socrates into the right channel for Son, who is now able to run at Holding. And what happens here is as he runs at Holding, he's able to cut out wide and force Leno into a save. That's one opportunity, but again, you're seeing just from a simple clearance and the fact that Ali was able to offer some sort of offensive threat by flicking the ball over Socrates, Son was able to break in and possibly should have had a better opportunity. We look to another one where it stems from a throw-in, and it's Davies finding Son in that space, and Son ends up dropping the ball off to him, and he ends up playing a pass, and Davies plays a pass into Eriksen, who is held up by Bellerin, who instantly guides the ball across Tyrrell for Son, who runs past Tyrrell, ends up running past Socrates and Mustafi, and as he breaks into the box, you see Leno get into there late, but he's able to fire another shot on goal that leads to a corner kick. That is how they were going about their business. Another opportunity, we see Eriksen drop off a bit deeper to get the ball ahead of Mkhitaryan. What happens now is that he locates Bellerin, who's a bit higher, being closed down by Davies. He plays the pass into him, to the right side, to the right side of Tyrrell, and he drops it off to Sissoko, who is not picked up. Now we see Son make that run. Son makes the run in between Socrates and Mustafi, and the pass is played in between Mustafi and Bellerin. What happens here is that he's tracked by Socrates, and then Socrates commits a foul. That leads to the free kick that ends up seeing Dyer go across at the near post and not his effort past Leno that Leno should have saved. That also led to a tactical change from Spurs as they moved into more of a 4-2-3-1 with Ali just in behind Kane, and you saw Eriksen and Son move out into the wider areas. Why did they do this? Well, it also helped that now they had coverage in those wider areas to ensure that Kolasinac and Bellerin couldn't get forward. They wanted to ensure that they couldn't, because they were having the numerical advantage. They were free in those wide areas. Pochettino had to do something about it. He did that. If Eriksen couldn't push out, we saw Sissoko push out. It was very interchangeable. And then the build-up to that second goal stems from this, because we didn't see much combination between Ali and Kane prior to that change. Simple ball punted in. Socrates steps to Ali. He back heels it into Kane, who is held up by Mustafi. As Socrates comes across, we see Son drive across Socrates and Tyrrell to get the back heel from Kane. As he gets the back heel, he's able to run past Bellerin, and then we see Holding come across. Mike Dean awards a penalty, Kane converts it, and Spurs are able to go into halftime up a goal when Arsenal had possibly played the better football for large portions of that first half, but Arsenal didn't have any way to cope with Son's threat. He constantly broke him behind, and they finally paid on two separate occasions. So now let's get to the second half, see what changes Emery made, and see how Pochettino tried to adapt to that before Arsenal killed off the game. So heading into the second half, we saw Arsenal make some tactical changes. They moved to more of a 3-4-1-2. Aaron Ramsey came into play in the hole, and they brought on Lacazette. That means that Mkhitaryan and Iwobi came off. What you have here is now the two strikers operating in these spaces right here between the center backs and the full backs, and Ramsey sort of with a free roll, dropping off to get on the ball, looking to play those two in, and also picking up the ball in between them based on the fact that, again, look at what we have here. The midfield battle, and they weren't really dealing with Ramsey, or no one was picking him up. We think about one of the earlier chances is just simply, again, Tyrrell clipping the ball over Dyer for Ramsey, and what does Ramsey locate? Locates the run of Aubameyang. Aubameyang, he does play the ball into Aubameyang in between that space, between the left back and the center back in Davies and Vertonghen, but the ball is overhit, and he's unable to get onto it. But again, we're seeing the warning signs there. Spurs didn't really create any chances throughout. You had the Kane free kick that was pushed over the net. You had the poor Bellerin pass that saw Son get another opportunity but curl his effort on goal. This was about Spurs and how they were going forward. And again, everything is kind of down that right-hand side. You saw Mustafi step forward, and he was able to locate Lacazette this time, making that run into that left channel. And you had Vertonghen kind of push out, but that didn't lead to much. And then we kind of have to move over to the goal. And the goal doesn't really stem from much, because just a simple ball spun out to Bellerin. Bellerin is not closed down by Eriksen. And what happens there now? So the ball is clipped in between. It's clipped across Vertonghen for Ramsey, making that darting run in between Foyth. The reason why that pass is able to be played is because Lacazette moves into that right-hand position to hold off Davies. So now we see Ramsey run across Foyth, and he's able to guide the ball into the path of Aubameyang, goal side of Aurier, and he curls his effort first time past the keeper. Then we have another opportunity where we see Holding win the far post corner, not to Mustafi, but Ali cleared his effort off the line, and Tyrrell blasted his shot inches wide of the net. Spurs were in trouble. They ended up switching their system. They ended up again moving into more of a 3-4-2-1. With that being said, Dyer dropped off, and now they had Kane. They had Ali and Son in behind Kane, Eriksen and Sissoko in midfield. But this didn't really change much. Yes, they still press very well, like Arsenal, Arsenal pressed with the two strikers and Ramsey pushing in. What happened here was that now Spurs were able to press with Ali, Son, and Kane, but that didn't really change much for them. They were still encountering issues with Ramsey dropping into that space, and with Dyer moving into that position, you have to think that they wanted someone to pick up Ramsey, but that didn't happen. And then we see another change. We see Mustafi come off. We see Arsenal move to more of a 4-3-3. That doesn't really change much for them either, because when you think about the goals that are scored, it doesn't really affect them in that regard. When we look at the grand scheme of things, we see Ramsey end up pressing. Foyth, and he ends up losing the ball, and he ends up playing it into Lacazette, who's ahead of the two center backs. He's able to square them up, and he fires a shot off Dyer and past Lloris. That's one unlucky goal that they're able to score, but again, it pushes them ahead. Then we get the winner, and it's a Aubameyang from that right-hand side, cutting in on Davies. And when he cuts in on Davies, he plays the pass in between Vertonghen and in between Dyer. And what happens here is that Tyrrell is there, and he's able to peel off Dyer, who gambles, and break free on goal, and he slides his effort into the net. But we break down this game as a whole. Spurs really only threatened through Son, whereas Arsenal started the game well with their pressing, forcing Spurs into mistakes and creating chances. And then the second half, they changed their system. They were able to get ahead. Ramsey played a big part. Lacazette and Aubameyang offered more of an attacking threat. The system changes didn't really influence the game as a whole, but they played key factors into key moments in this game, stemmed from individual brilliance, and that is why Arsenal were able to secure 3 points on the night. But let me know what you guys think. Which one of these two sides will finish higher in the table? Will both of them finish in the top 4? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.